Hello everyone, my name is Jan Hung. I am from Vietnam, and this is part 4 of the 1000 Why Questions in Life. Thank you for your interest and support. Thank you very much. Why do I work at something I don't believe in? Why do I trade my life for money? Why do I confuse my income with my self-worth? These are some of the toughest questions we can ask ourselves, and they go right to the core of our daily lives. Welcome to part 4 of our series on the 1000 Why questions, where today we're diving deep into the world of work, money, and what success truly means. Have you ever felt like you're on a treadmill, running hard, but not really going anywhere you want to be? That's a common feeling. Many of us find ourselves in jobs we don't believe in, simply because they pay the bills. We start trading our precious time, our energy, our very life force for a paycheck. And slowly, subtly, we can start to equate the number on that paycheck with our value as a person. We see a high income and think, that's worth. But is it? Is our worth really defined by how much we earn? This leads to another trap, chasing a version of success that isn't even ours. We see what society, our parents, or our peers value, the fancy titles, the big houses, the luxury cars, and we start running after it. Why do I chase success defined by others? It's often because we're driven by a deep-seated fear of financial insecurity. We worry about not having enough, about the bills piling up, about what would happen if the money suddenly stopped. This fear is powerful, and it can keep us stuck. It makes us measure our success by external markers, the job title, the salary, the corner office, instead of internal feelings of fulfillment and joy. This is where the real conflict begins. Deep down, many of us yearn for meaning, but we fear choosing it over money. Why? Because the path of meaning can feel uncertain and less profitable. It's often easier to stay in a job we resent than to face the unknown. We tell ourselves it's just for now, that we'll pursue our purpose later, after we've saved enough, after the kids are grown, after we retire. But later has a way of never arriving. We delay and we delay, settling professionally for what's comfortable and predictable. And what's at the heart of all this settling and delaying? Fear, plain and simple. We fear starting something new. The thought of launching a new business, changing careers, or going back to school can be terrifying. We're afraid of all the what ifs. What if I fail? And even worse, what if I fail publicly, where everyone can see? The fear of public failure can be paralyzing. It's why so many of us are afraid to quit a job that's making us miserable. Quitting feels like admitting defeat. We tell ourselves we're choosing stability, but often we're just confusing stability with fulfillment. A stable job might provide a steady paycheck, but if it drains your soul, is it truly stable for your overall well-being? We avoid taking risks in our career. We postpone our dreams, and we prioritize the feeling of safety over the fire of passion. We choose the known misery over the unknown happiness. The uncertainty of a new path feels like a bigger threat than the certainty of our current dissatisfaction. So why do we do it? Why do we chase status? Why do we crave recognition from others? It's because we're human. We want to feel seen, valued, and important. We want to know that our work, our contribution, matters. The problem arises when we seek that validation exclusively from the outside world. When we let external praise or criticism dictate our career choices and our sense of self. So let's go back to the beginning. Why do we work at things we don't believe in? Why do we stay in work we resent? because we're afraid. We fear uncertainty, we fear failure, we fear financial insecurity, and we fear what others will think. We've been taught to play it safe, to confuse income with worth, and to postpone our dreams for a leader that may never come. But what if we started asking different questions? Instead of, why do I fear quitting? What if we asked, what's the cost of staying? Instead of, why do I fear failing? What if we asked, what could I learn from trying? Real fulfillment doesn't come from a bigger salary or a more prestigious title. It comes from aligning your work with your values, from using your unique talents to contribute something meaningful, and from having the courage to define success on your own terms. It's about building a life, not just a resume. It's about choosing purpose, even when it's scary, because the biggest risk isn't failing at something new. It's succeeding at something that doesn't matter to you. It's getting to the end of your life and realizing you traded your one precious life for a sense of security that was really just a cage. So I invite you to sit with these questions. Be honest with yourself. There are no easy answers, but the act of asking is the first step toward creating a life of work that is not just successful, but also deeply fulfilling. Let's start with a big one. Why do I tie my entire identity to my job? It's a common trap. We introduce ourselves with our job title, and soon what we do becomes who we are. This leads to another question. Why do I fear slowing down professionally? It feels like if we take our foot off the gas, even for a second, we'll be left behind, forgotten. We equate being busy with being valuable. We think that a packed calendar means a life well lived, but does it? This constant need to be busy creates a strange relationship with rest. Why do I fear rest? Why do I feel guilty when I'm idle? It's as if taking a break is a sign of weakness, a moral failing. We've been conditioned to believe that every moment must be productive. This mindset is the breeding ground for overwork. We start asking ourselves, why do I overwork? Why do I neglect my own life for the sake of my job? We tell ourselves it's temporary, a necessary sacrifice, and that leads to the great deferral of life. Why do I postpone living until later? We promise ourselves we'll travel, pick up that hobby, or spend more time with family asterisk. After asterisk, the next promotion. Asterisk after asterisk, we hit that savings goal. Asterisk after asterisk, we've made it. But later is a horizon that keeps moving further away. We sacrifice our health for success, convinced that the prize at the end is worth the pain now. We trade sleepless nights and high stress for a future payoff that might never come. We sacrifice our relationships for achievement, missing out on birthdays, anniversaries, and simple moments of connection because a deadline loomed larger. We convince ourselves that our loved ones will understand, that they'll still be there when we finally have time for them. This relentless drive is fueled by a powerful fear, the fear of missing out professionally, or FOMO. We see colleagues getting promotions, launching businesses, or receiving accolades, and we feel a pang of anxiety. Why do I compare my progress to everyone else's? Social media becomes a highlight reel of other people's wins, making it almost impossible not to measure our own journey against theirs. This comparison quickly turns into something more corrosive. Why do I envy others' success? Instead of feeling inspired, we feel resentment or inadequacy. It's a toxic cycle that keeps us perpetually dissatisfied. This constant comparison plants a seed of doubt in our minds. We start to feel like we're falling behind. Why do I feel behind? It feels like everyone else got a secret manual for success, and we're just struggling to keep up. This feeling is closely tied to another deep-seated fear, the fear of being average. Why do I fear mediocrity? In a world that celebrates the extraordinary, being normal can feel like a failure. We're told to dream big, to be exceptional, to change the world. The pressure is immense. We're taught that average is boring, that mediocrity is a life wasted. So what do? We chase more. More money, more status, more recognition, more everything. We believe that the next achievement will finally bring us a lasting sense of fulfillment. But it rarely does. The goalposts just move again. This brings us to the ultimate, most frustrating question of all. Why is enough never enough? We reach a goal we once dreamed of, and for a fleeting moment, we feel content. But then, the feeling fades, and the hunger for more returns. It's an endless treadmill, a chase without a finish line. These questions are not easy to answer. They force us to confront the societal pressures, the personal insecurities, and the ingrained beliefs that drive our behavior. They challenge the very definition of success we've been taught to accept. The truth is, your worth is not determined by your productivity. Your identity is so much more than your job title. Rest is not a luxury. It's a necessity. Your life is happening right now, not in some distant later. Breaking free from this cycle starts with awareness. It starts with asking these why questions and sitting with the uncomfortable answers. It's about redefining success on your own terms. Maybe success isn't about climbing a corporate ladder, but about building strong relationships. Maybe it's not about a bigger bank account, but about having more time and freedom. Maybe being average and living a peaceful, happy life is actually the most extraordinary achievement of all. If these questions resonate with you, know that you are not alone. Many of us are grappling with these same feelings. The journey to a healthier relationship with work, money, and success is a long one, but it begins with the courage to ask why. It's about consciously choosing to step off the treadmill and deciding what a truly rich life looks like for you. First up, let's talk about money. Why is enough never truly enough? It feels like we're on a treadmill, doesn't it? The moment we reach a financial goal, the finish line just moves further away. This constant chase makes us accumulate things instead of collecting experiences. We buy the latest gadget, the bigger house, but do we feel happier? Or are we just more cluttered? This leads to a huge misconception. We often confuse wealth with freedom. We think more money means more choices, more power to live as we want. And in some ways, it does. But true freedom is a state of mind, not just a bank balance. You can be a millionaire trapped in a golden cage, or have very little and feel completely free. So where do these feelings come from? A lot of it boils down to fear. We fear financial dependence, the idea of having to rely on someone else. It feels like a loss of control, a threat to our autonomy. But on the flip side, some of us fear financial independence. The weight of responsibility, the pressure to make all the right decisions, the fear of failure, it can be paralyzing. It feels safer to let someone else handle it. This deep-seated fear is why we so strongly associate money with security. We believe that a big bank account is a fortress that will protect us from life's uncertainties. And because of this, the fear of losing money becomes all-consuming. We become so afraid of losing what we have that we forget to live. This fear has a powerful grip on us. It makes us let money control our choices. We stay in jobs we hate because the salary is good. We give up on dreams because they don't seem financially viable. We choose partners based on their earning potential. We sacrifice our health, our relationships, and our peace of mind, all in service to the almighty dollar. Money becomes the master, and we become its servant. Is this really the life we want to live? Is this the trade-off we're willing to make? It's a critical question to ask ourselves. When did we allow an external tool to dictate our internal compass? This obsession with financial security naturally spills over into our idea of success. We start to chase external success, the job title, the corner office, the public recognition. We build a life that looks impressive from the outside, but how does it feel on the inside? Often, in this relentless chase, we ignore our inner fulfillment. We silence that quiet voice inside that's begging for meaning, for purpose, for joy. We start to measure our entire lives by our achievements. Our worth becomes tied to our resume, to our list of accomplishments. Did I get the promotion? Did I close the deal? Did I make more money this year than last year? It's an exhausting way to live, constantly running a race against everyone else, and even against ourselves. Because we're so locked into this definition of success, we develop a deep fear of redefining it. What would happen if we decided success wasn't about the money or the title? What if success was about peace of mind, strong relationships, or creative expression? This leads to a fear of choosing a different path. The road less traveled is scary. It's uncertain. There's no map, no guaranteed outcome. So we avoid unconventional choices. We stick to the safe, predictable route that society has laid out for us. Go to school, get a good job, climb the corporate ladder, retire. It's a well-worn path. But is it your path? Are you walking it because you want to, or because you're afraid to forge your own? This fear of straying from the norm is deeply connected to another powerful fear, the fear of judgment. We fear judgment for our work. What if people think our job isn't prestigious enough? What if they think our creative pursuits are a waste of time? This morphs into a fear of not being impressive. We want to walk into a room and have people be impressed by what we do. We crave that external validation. We feel a desperate need for validation through our success. A promotion isn't just a pay raise. It's proof that we're worthy. A successful business isn't just about profit. It's a sign that we matter. We constantly chase professional approval, hoping that our boss, our colleagues, or our industry will finally tell us that we're good enough. And that really gets to the heart of it all, doesn't it? The ultimate fear, the fear of not being enough. This single, powerful fear is the engine driving so many of our choices around work, money, and success. We work ourselves to the bone, we hoard money we'll never spend, and we chase achievements that leave us empty, all because we're trying to prove our worth. We're trying to build a case to the world and to ourselves that we are valuable. We start to define ourselves by our outcomes. A successful project means I am a success. A failed project means I am a failure. We tie our very identity to the unpredictable tides of external results. This is a fragile and dangerous way to build our self-esteem. So the final question is perhaps the most important. Why do we resist redefining success internally? Why is it so hard to look inward and decide for ourselves what a successful life looks like? It's because it requires courage. It requires us to let go of what everyone else thinks. It requires us to trust ourselves, to listen to our own hearts, and to have the bravery to live a life that is authentically our own, even if it looks different from everyone else's. It means accepting that our worth is inherent. It is not something to be earned through a job title or a bank account. You are enough, right now, exactly as you are. The journey is not about proving your worth, but about discovering and embracing it. Why do I feel so empty after a big achievement? You've worked for months, maybe years, for this moment. You get the promotion, you close the deal, you launch the project. Everyone's congratulating you, but inside there's a quiet, unsettling void. Why does success not satisfy the way you thought it would? It's like reaching the top of a mountain only to find it's not the view you were hoping for. This accomplishment that was supposed to complete you just feels hollow. And what happens next? Almost immediately, you start looking for the next thing. Why do I crave more right after winning? The thrill is gone, and the only way to get it back seems to be to chase another, bigger win. It's a relentless cycle, a treadmill of ambition that never seems to stop. And that brings up a deeper fear. Why do I fear stopping? What would happen if I just paused? If I didn't immediately set a new goal? The silence can be terrifying because it allows other, more difficult questions to surface. Questions like, why am I doing this? We often avoid this one like the plague. It's so much easier to stay busy, to keep moving, than to confront the fundamental reasons behind our actions. Why do I avoid questioning my career path? We build our lives, our identities around our work. To question the path is to question ourselves, and that can feel like shaking the very foundations of our existence. The fear of change is powerful. Why do I fear changing direction? You've invested so much time, so much energy, so much of yourself into this one road. The thought of admitting it might be the wrong one. The thought of starting over can feel paralyzing. Why do I fear starting over? It feels like failure, like throwing away years of hard work. We tell ourselves we're too old, too invested, too far down the line. So we stay put. And this is how we get stuck. Why do I stay stuck professionally? It's not usually a single dramatic event. It's a series of small compromises, a slow erosion of our dreams, until one day we look around and realize we're in a cage of our own making. Why do I feel trapped by my choices? Every decision, every yes to a job we didn't love, every no to a risk that felt too big, builds the bars of this cage. Ironically, the escape route can be just as scary as the cage itself. Why do I fear freedom in work? True freedom means responsibility. It means there are no more excuses, no one else to blame. It means we have to make our own choices, create our own meaning, and that's a heavy burden to bear. So we hesitate. Why do I fear choosing meaning over money or stability? It feels irresponsible, idealistic, naive. The world has taught us that meaning is a luxury, not a necessity. So much of this comes down to how we see ourselves through the eyes of others. Why do I fear losing status? We're social creatures, and our place in the hierarchy matters to us whether we admit it or not. We get attached to the perks, the respect, the title on our business card. Why do I cling to titles? Because senior vice president sounds a lot more impressive than person trying to figure things out. Titles give us a shorthand for our value in the world. We end up on a frantic chase. Why do I chase prestige? Because prestige is a socially accepted form of success. It's easily recognizable. A fancy job title, a degree from a top university, a house in a certain neighborhood, these are symbols that everyone understands. They signal that we've made it. We start to measure our worth by these external yardsticks. Why do I measure success socially? Because it's easier than developing our own internal compass. It's a pre-made system for validation. And at the heart of this is a fear of letting people down. Why do I fear disappointing others? Our parents, our partners, our mentors, they all have hopes and dreams for us. We internalize these expectations and they become a powerful guiding force in our lives. Often, we don't even realize it's happening. Why do I let their expectations define me? Because it gives us a clear script to follow. It relieves us of the terrifying, exhilarating task of writing our own. And so we avoid the most important question of all. Why do I avoid creating my own definition of success? Creating your own definition means taking a hard look at your life and asking what truly matters to you, not to your boss, not to your parents, not to society. It means being brave enough to live by your own values, even if they're different from everyone else's. It's the hardest work you'll ever do, but it's also the most rewarding. It's the journey from a life of hollow achievements to a life of deep personal fulfillment. The answers aren't easy, but the questions are where the magic begins. Welcome back to our journey through the 1,000 why questions of life. Today we're diving into part 4, work, money, and success. This one hits close to home for many of us, so let's get right into it. Why do I feel empty after a big achievement? Why does success, the very thing I've been chasing, fail to satisfy me? You cross the finish line, you get the promotion, you hit the sales target, and for a moment, there's a rush. But then, an unsettling hollowness creeps in. Why does accomplishment feel so hollow? It's as if the moment you win, a new craving for more immediately takes its place. This leads to a relentless cycle. Why do I crave more after winning? It's like a treadmill that just speeds up. The goalposts are always moving, and the satisfaction is always just over the next hill. This constant pursuit creates a hidden anxiety. Why do I fear stopping? The thought of pausing, of just being, feels terrifying. It feels like if I stop running, I'll cease to exist or be left behind. And this fear of stopping is connected to a deeper fear. Why do I fear asking, why am I doing this? It's the big, scary question that looms over our careers. We spend so much of our lives at work, but questioning its fundamental purpose feels like shaking the very ground we stand on, so we avoid it. Why do I avoid questioning my career path? It's easier to just keep your head down and follow the map you were given, even if you suspect it leads somewhere you don't want to go. This avoidance breeds a feeling of being stuck. Why do I fear changing direction? The comfort of the known, even if it's unfulfilling, often feels safer than the uncertainty of a new path. And the biggest fear of all, why do I fear starting over? The idea of going back to square one, of losing all the progress I've made, can be paralyzing. It's this paralysis that keeps us in jobs we've outgrown. Why do I stay stuck professionally? It's not usually a lack of options, but a fear of the unknown. We tell ourselves we're trapped. But are we really? Why do I feel trapped by my choices? Often, the cage isn't made of steel bars, but of our own perceptions and fears. It's a self-imposed prison built on past decisions. What's truly ironic is the next question. Why do I fear freedom in work? The very thing we say we want, autonomy, the ability to choose, can be intimidating when we actually face it. Because with freedom comes responsibility. The responsibility to make the right choice, to create our own meaning. And that's a heavy burden. Why do I fear choosing meaning over money or security? Choosing a path based on personal fulfillment rather than a clear, socially approved metric is a huge leap of faith. It requires you to trust your own inner compass, which is something many of us have been taught to ignore. This is where social pressure comes in. Why do I fear losing status? We are social creatures, and our place in the hierarchy matters to us. Status provides a sense of security and validation. It's a shorthand for worth in our society. That's why titles are so powerful. Why do I cling to titles? Manager, director, CEO, these words feel solid. They feel like armor. We chase them because they offer a clear external measure of our value. Why do I chase prestige? Because prestige promises respect and admiration from others. It's an external scoreboard for a game we think we're supposed to be winning. And that's the problem. Why do I measure success socially? We let society hand us a scorecard, and we spend our lives trying to get a high score without ever asking if we even want to play the game. We're running a race we didn't sign up for, towards a finish line someone else set. This leads to a profound fear of letting people down. Why do I fear disappointing others? Parents, partners, mentors, society at large. Their expectations can feel like a crushing weight. We internalize them so deeply that we can no longer tell the difference between their dreams for us and our own. And so, why do I let expectations define me? It becomes easier to live out a script written by someone else than to face the blank page of our own life. Which brings us to the final, most important question in this section. Why do I avoid creating my own definition of success? This is the ultimate act of courage. To turn away from the noise, the scorecards, the titles, and the expectations. To sit down with yourself and ask, what does a successful life look like to me? What truly matters? Answering that question honestly and then living that answer is perhaps the most challenging and rewarding work we will ever do. These questions aren't easy. They poke at our deepest insecurities, but they are essential. By daring to ask them, we begin the process of reclaiming our work, our success, and ultimately, our lives. Let's begin with a question that many of us might not even realize we're living. Why do I trade my time for approval? Think about it. How many hours have you spent on a project, not for the love of the work, but for the praise you hope to receive? How often do you say yes to something you don't want to do, just to be seen as a team player or a good employee? This ties directly into our next question. Why do I fear slowing down? Is it because the world tells us that busy equals important? We wear our packed schedules like a badge of honor, but what are we really achieving? Rushing from task to task, meeting to meeting, we're constantly in motion. But are we making any real progress toward a life we truly want? This relentless pace often leads us to avoid something crucial: long-term thinking. Why do I avoid long-term thinking? It's because the immediate demands of the day feel so much more urgent. Answering that email right now feels more important than planning for next year. We live in a state of reaction, constantly putting out small fires while the bigger, more important goals sit on the back burner, collecting dust. This is the essence of living short-term. We're so focused on getting through the week that we forget to build a life. We're chasing deadlines and paychecks, but are we chasing a future that genuinely excites us? This is a dangerous loop, because when you're always focused on the immediate, you start to believe that's all there is. This brings us to a really heavy question. Why do I sacrifice my life for goals? We tell ourselves the sacrifice is temporary. I'll just work hard for a few more years, then I'll relax. Once I get this promotion, then I'll have time for my family, my hobbies, my health. But the goalposts always seem to move, don't they? The promotion leads to more responsibility. The bigger house leads to a bigger mortgage. We get caught in a cycle of sacrificing the present for a future that never quite arrives. And this is where the next question comes in. Why do I postpone joy? We treat happiness like a reward to be earned, not a state to be lived. We convince ourselves that joy is something that happens asterisk after asterisk. The hard work is done. So we have to ask, why do I think happiness comes later? And why do I attach my happiness so firmly to success? We create these mental bargains with ourselves. I'll be happy when I make 6 figures. I'll be happy when I'm a vice president. I'll be happy when I can finally buy that car. But what happens when we achieve those things? There's a momentary rush, for sure, but it fades, and then we just set a new, higher goal, pushing our happiness even further down the road. We're on a treadmill, running towards a horizon that keeps receding. This is the great illusion of our modern work culture. It sells us a version of success that is always just out of reach, ensuring we keep running, keep sacrificing, keep postponing. This constant chase creates a deep-seated anxiety about stillness. This is why we must ask, why do I avoid presence? Why do I rush life? Being present means confronting where we are right now, and for many, that's uncomfortable. It's easier to be distracted by the next task, the next goal, the next notification on our phone. Rushing becomes a defense mechanism. If we're always moving, we don't have to feel the emptiness or misalignment in our current reality. We don't have to face the nagging feeling that something is fundamentally wrong. This fear of stillness is really a fear of ourselves. It's a fear of what we might find if we stopped long enough to look. And what are we afraid of finding? Perhaps it's the answer to this question. Why do I fear living now? Living now means accepting that this moment right here is your life. It's not a dress rehearsal. It's not a waiting room for some better future. This is it. And that can be a terrifying thought, especially if you're not happy with your now. So we delay. We delay fulfillment. We tell ourselves, I'll travel the world when I retire. I'll start that passion project when the kids are grown. We keep our dreams safely locked away in the future, where we don't have to risk failing at them today. We create a whole narrative around why our real life hasn't started yet. This narrative is built on another flawed belief we must question. Why do I think meaning is later? We imagine that one day we'll have an epiphany. We'll find our one true purpose, and suddenly everything will make sense. But meaning isn't a destination you arrive at. It's not a prize you win at the end of the game. So if meaning isn't later, then why do I ignore the meaning that is available now? Meaning can be found in a conversation with a loved one. It can be found in the satisfaction of solving a small problem at work. It can be found in a quiet moment in nature. We overlook these small, everyday sources of meaning because we're too busy scanning the horizon for something bigger, grander, and more impressive. This constant search for something more leads us down a dangerous path. It leads us to this question: Why do I chase what doesn't fulfill me? We chase the promotion, the salary, the status symbols because that's what we're told should fulfill us. Society gives us a very clear blueprint for success. But for many of us, when we follow that blueprint, we arrive at the destination and find it empty. We have the corner office, the impressive title, and a deep, knowing sense of, is this all there is? We keep chasing because stopping would mean admitting that we've been running in the wrong direction. It's easier to keep running than to face that possibility. And that brings us to the questions we are most afraid to ask ourselves, the ones we actively avoid. Why do I avoid asking, is this worth my life? It's the ultimate accountability question. Is this job, this stress, this sacrifice truly worth the one and only life I have to live? To ask this question honestly is to risk turning your entire world upside down. It might mean admitting you've made huge mistakes. It might mean making terrifying changes so we don't ask. We just keep our heads down and keep going, hoping the question will go away on its own. It won't. Similarly, we must ask, why do I avoid redefining my priorities? Redefining priorities is an admission that our current ones aren't working. It means looking at the gap between what we say is important, like health, family, and peace, and where we actually spend our time and energy, which is often on work and obligations. Closing that gap requires courage. It requires having difficult conversations with bosses, partners, and even with ourselves. It's much easier to just maintain the status quo, even if it's making us miserable. This is why so many of us feel a persistent sense of being off-kilter. And that leads to our final set of questions. Why do I live misaligned? And why do I avoid alignment? Living misaligned is that constant, low-grade hum of anxiety that tells you something isn't right. It's the Sunday evening dread. It's the feeling of wearing a costume every day. We know we are not living in sync with our true values, but seeking alignment feels like a monumental task. It feels like quitting your job, moving to a new city, or completely reinventing yourself. But alignment can start small. It can be saying no to one extra task. It can be carving out 30 minutes for a walk. It's a series of small corrections that slowly steer your ship back on course. We avoid it because we overestimate the difficulty and underestimate the profound relief that comes from taking that first small step. Finally, we circle back to where we started, but with a deeper understanding. Why do I sacrifice my life for success? We've seen how this happens. It's a slow erosion, a series of small compromises and postponed joys that eventually consume our lives. We do it because we bought into a definition of success that doesn't include our own well-being. But what if we chose a different definition? What if success meant having energy at the end of the day? What if it meant being present with our families? What if success was simply a life lived without regret? These questions about work, money, and success are not meant to provide easy answers. They are meant to be a mirror that reflects back to us the life we are actually living, not the one we tell ourselves we're living. The real work begins now in how you choose to answer them, not with words, but with your actions, starting today. Thank you for joining me on this deep dive. I encourage you to sit with these questions and see what comes up for you. If you found this valuable, please like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss the next part of our series. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Until next time, keep asking why. End of part 4 Hello everyone, I'm Jan Hung. I'm from Vietnam. Thank you so much for your support. It truly means a great deal to me and is a huge source of encouragement. See you in part 5.